Hey people, it's time to do the 3 episode test for Wheel of Time, or rather, I've already watched the first 3 episodes. Actually, I've watched the first 4, but based off the first 3 episodes, I wanted to make this a little while ago, but I haven't been feeling good for like the past week, so I've been putting it off until now when I feel a lot better. So, the short and simple is for the 3 episode test. If you don't know what it is, it's more so to do with anime, where you watch the first 3 episodes to see if it is going to be worthwhile or not. And for Wheel of Time, I definitely say, yeah, it's worthwhile. There's quite a few changes from the books. A lot of people are upset by this, but to be honest, it's got the same vibe and enough's there to be recognizable that it doesn't feel like it's too far away from the books. They've made some changes, I think, which are better definitely for a TV series. So like they've got a lot of ambiguity around who is the Dragon Reborn, opposed to in the book where you just not pretty much know from the get go simply by who's the point of view character for the majority of the series, to be honest. So the changes there I think are quite good, especially if you take into consideration the 4th episode, which I won't get into spoilers, but the ending throws, if you don't know, if you haven't read the books, the ending throws a huge sort of spanner in the works. I guess it's more of a 4 episode test, actually. I'm just going to include episode 4. Um, so I'll get a bit more into like the plot that's covered. I won't go too much into the changes, but here and there I'll say what has changed. There's some things I'll also talk about which I don't like, and then things I do like. So when it comes to changes, obviously in my first episode 1 reaction, I said they've obviously aged up the characters, which it does definitely obviously have a knock-on effect to what how they show the characters as well. So, for example, as I said, Pyramid is married in the first episode, and then during the Sherlock attack, he kills his wife, and this is good because throughout the whole series, he has this sort of question of the blacksmith versus the warrior type thing, where he is like constantly questioning violence, and obviously in the book you got inside his head, so there is like a more, it's much easier to show like, this is a constant thing he's dealing with, the question of is violence right. Obviously then in episode 3 and 4 he's there with the Tinkers, who are a pacifist group, and they obviously have followed the so-called way of the leaf. I don't know why I'm wearing these actually. Which is a pacifist sort of religion. So yeah, and I think that also helps shape his viewpoint on violence. But with the death of him killing his wife, that makes the question focused around a person. Although that's what I think he'll do. He'll focus on the fact that he killed his wife, so he'll constantly go back to that because I think if I remember correctly in the books, it was something his blacksmith teacher said to him that made him question if violence is right or what, so on. But I think him killing his wife obviously gives that much more emotional impact, whereas it follows a character. Rad isn't too different. Actually, he's pretty much the same, to be honest. Matt's also mostly the same. Obviously, they've aged him up. So in the books, he would steal like food and so on. He'll play pranks, and that was how they showed he was sort of a trickster. Whereas in the show, since they're in their 20s, it sort of doesn't make sense for a 20-year-old to be stealing food from, the people's windowsills and stuff like that. That'd be kind of odd and immature. So instead, they made him a gambler and a petty theft where he steals jewelry to sell to Pat and Faye. So obviously that's a change. And then they also made his mum an alcoholic and his dad a womanizer, which also sort of leads to his misfit sort of him having parental issues, which wasn't in the books, but he also has the whole interaction with his sisters where he's trying to do his best for his sisters. I've read online people hated this change. I think it makes perfect sense given the fact that he has been aged up, and they're making it like more mature in general. So obviously, hence his parents. And people acting like it's a huge fucking deal when, to be honest, you barely get any interaction with his parents before they're gone. Like they leave the Two Rivers, and it's like who really cares? Like the changes are they're meaningless in the end because in the books, like who who really remembers anything about Matt and parents? It's like nobody does. Rand's father, a bit more because he comes in later in the books. So yeah, that's that with the core trio. Nynaeve, they made an outs somebody who was brought in from the outside, which is obviously a change from the books, but this is obviously there again to increase the ambiguity on who is the dragon. Um, Egwene is pretty much exactly the same. They did a little more fleshed out with the whole thing with the woman's circle, which I liked having that be have like the sort of trial going down the river. That was a good change. They kept the whole necklace thing that Moiraine did the test to see if she could use the one power, which obviously she can. If you read the books, you already knew that, but for obviously anybody who hadn't, it shows that, which is good as well. The overall like plot structure, obviously, it's much faster because if they were following the books, it would be like episode 3 before they're even out of the Two Rivers. So obviously they made that faster. They obviously cut out the part with is it Baelaron, the city, which was like town, small city, which was to the north of the Two Rivers, which they mention as I guess to pay homage that they sort of cut it out, and that was where the party met the White Cloaks for the first time, and they also met a character called Min, who was pretty important for the books. But I imagine that if they're going to introduce her, they're probably going to introduce her in either the White Bridge or when they go to Telephron, or the Rand never goes there. I know Matt, Egwene, and obviously forgot her name. The other one. Obviously, they go to Talvaron and the White Tower. So I imagine Min goes there as well. So they could meet her there, which would be fine. It's not too big a deal. It would be weird if they cut her out entirely because she is important to Rand, and she does she sort of has the ability. She'll see like icons surrounding people, and then that can sort of tell her bits about their future type thing. So she's interesting there. They could cut her out entirely though. It wouldn't be outside the realm of possibility, and I don't actually think it would be that big a deal. Some people will probably hate me for saying that, but yeah, I don't actually think that'd be a huge fucking deal. Next, Tom. They introduced Tom later, so he's in was it Breen Spring? Was that what it's called? A small mining town, which I can't remember that in the books, to be honest. I think it was mentioned, and they may have gone through it. I No, I think that was when yeah, that was the same sort of thing where they got trapped by Dark Friends, but obviously that played out similarly, but instead it was like a guy and he was like sketchy as from the get go, so it was sort of like it sort of didn't have the impact that I want to lower this impact that in the TV series it was that Dana who was like quite nice and charming to the Matt and Rand, whereas in the books it was some I can't even remember his name. It doesn't really matter because he dies pretty quickly, and he so they killed obviously Tom kills her, and in the books they try to escape the room, like they're on a pallet, and they hear the guy and he had like a I guess a strong man with him. They start breaking the door, and he escapes by Rand escapes. There's like a bolt of lightning that blasts a hole in it, and his lightning moment in the TV show was him knocking down a door which was made of ironwood, and Dana was like, you can't knock it down, and you'll take three men to knock it down, and he does. So that was his lightning moment, which is sort of a hint that he is a channeler. But they've also done a red herring with Matt because fuck. Discord. Yeah, oh well, they did a red herring with Matt. If I guess I shouldn't have said that, but Tom says that he's showing the signs of being a male channeler. He's paranoid. He's sort of he's got the whole he's acting a little weird, but that's actually because of the dagger they took from Shadow Logoth, which I also like the change that they did there. There's the tiny changes how the in the books it was like a grey mist that would kill you if it touched you, whereas in this it was like a black creep along thing, which that's super minor. But one thing they did change was by making Moraine poisoned by a Trolloc spear. Um, that means that uh, Lan made the decision to sort of go in, and Moraine didn't know, which I thought was quite a good change because it meant it sort of it felt a little better because it keeps Moraine sort of being a sort of more wise one. She's meant to be like a Gandalf type character. So I did like that change. The split up was all the same. If I had to guess, the Tinker stuff is pretty much the same. There is one thing which I think will probably happen in episode 5. I'm just going to go on a little bit of speculation. So in the books, if you in the TV show as well, you will notice that Pyram has like wolves often come up to him and they're like guiding him around, and that's kind of weird. In the books, he meets a character who basically says, "Yeah, you're what's called a wolf brother, and you can communicate with wolves in your dreams, and they sort of see you as a sort of pack member, and they're trying to help you, and so on and so forth." And that's very important for Pyram's character overall as he sort of develops his abilities as a wolf brother throughout the series. So I imagine that will happen in episode 5 because he meets them when he's with the Tinkerers. And then after, I can't remember if it was after the Tinkerers or before, they run into a White Cloak camp, and that's the first real taste of what the White Cloaks are all about. So I don't know if they're going to include that or just skip it because they've already sort of shown the White Cloaks. But I'm going to talk heaps about episode 4 now. Actually, no, let's go back to 3. Nynaeve, that's what I was, now I remember. Nynaeve, at the beginning of episode 3 and / end of 2, they have her threaten Lan. And this is probably one of my favourite scenes from the TV show. Basically, she sneaks up and she has I think it's a short sword. She's like, oh no, it's the Trolloc's knife. That's it. And she holds it to Lan's neck, and Lan's like, first like, how did you track me? And he's impressed that she was tracked. And then he goes, oh, we both know you won't kill me. And then she actually tries to stab him. And I quite like that because it's sort of this, you can see that like the mutual respect form, and obviously that's important for later on in the series with those two. I won't give it too much away, but I think I've already have just what I've said there. And I think I'll talk about episode 4 now. Episode 4 was probably the biggest divergence from the book series. Apart from the stuff with the Tinkers with Pyram and Egwene, pretty much none of that happened in the books. There was sort with Rand, Matt, and Tom. There's sort of a bit that's like the books, but not really. There is part where they run into a Fade, and Tom basically fights it and goes, "You guys get out of here." That still happens, but obviously it's in a completely different situation where they're basically crashing with. They did like farm work for a family, and then the Fade. Well, I think it was the Fade who killed the family, because if Matt did so with the dagger, which is something else, people are like, oh, they made Matt a killer. First off, he's got the dagger, which does change his whole mental state. It's sort of slowly corrupting him, or quite rapidly, actually. I think it was quite rapid in the books too. So obviously that's that element. But if he killed them with the dagger, it pretty much disintegrates their bodies. So I don't think he did it. I'm pretty certain it was the Fade who killed them, and then Matt must have gone in with the knife, because then he goes like, "I see you," and he points up at the rafters with the dagger, and then the Fade's in there, and the Fade then just does his little shadow jump to the bottom, and that's when Tom fights him, and the boys escape. Um, so there was a scene similar to that in the books, but that was in when they got to Whitebridge, because they escaped, and they actually got to I can't remember, at the capital of Andor, which is the country they're in, and that's where they run into the Queen's Hall, because that's where Moraine meets up with them, because they don't. I think they're all going to just meet up at Whitebridge. I think they're going to change that from the books, because in the books they all met in this city. I think it's not Camelon. I can't remember what the name of the city is. Sorry, but they all meet there because Moraine gave each of the boys a coin at the beginning of the book series, and she actually has like a tracking spell or tracking weave cast on it, so she actually knows where they all are. So she actually manages to find them like that. But obviously in the TV series, she didn't do that. So I think they're just going to go like, when she said we're going to go to Whitebridge, I think they're actually all going to meet at Whitebridge. Yeah, and we'll talk about. I think that's all I want to talk about for the first 3 episodes. So I want to talk about episode 4 now. As I said, this was probably the biggest change from that was I was talking about episode 4. Anyway, the biggest change was obviously with Logan. Logan is probably one of my favorite characters from the books. I really like his character. I was worried that they were going to combine him with another false dragon called Tam, who is pretty much kind of like the opposite. He's like really sleazy and so on. Anyway, and I was worried that they're going to combine them, because yes, Tam does stuff, and Logan sort of is opposing him later on in the books, when they. I won't go into too much because I don't know how much they're going to show in the TV series, but these two characters clash. I was worried that they were going to combine them. That was my big worry, but it seems not. Just simply based off the opening scene where he gets the king of was it Garland? Can't remember the name of the city country. Sorry, my brain's a little. I watched a little while ago and I read the books ages ago, but the king. He shows like, when he has the voices saying, kill him, he's going to betray you like your family did, and instead he goes, no. That shows obviously quite a strong will, because he's straight out resisting the madness. He's not doing what it says. And then he heals him, and the king becomes like a fanatical follower of him, and then goes, yeah, he's the Dragon Reborn. And I like that because it does show, like, even though he's mad and he thinks he is the Dragon Reborn without being the Dragon Reborn, he is also trying to fill the role of, a fixer for the world. He's trying to mend the world, and that is quite good for his character. So I hope they stick with that. There is obviously, now that he's been gentled in the books, obviously that happened at the White Tower. They actually did get him there. They could still meet at the city, I think, the capital of Andor. I cannot remember its name for the life of me, because they took him there, the false dragon Logan there, and Rand saw him. So it could be possible that they don't meet at Whitebridge and they do meet there. And when Rand and Matt go to see the false dragon, they climb up the palace wall and look out. It's possible that they just see Moraine walking past with Lan and Nynaeve. That is also a possibility. And then he goes down, and maybe Egwene, Matt, Rand, and Perrin all meet at Whitebridge, and then they go off. That's also a possibility. That's something I could foresee. But back to episode 4, rather than speculation, I love the scenes with Logan when he's in this cage, and then his army comes, and just the interactions with Moraine and Liaren and the other Aes Sedai and all that. I really like that. Yeah, none of that happened in the books. Moraine basically never interacted. I think they interacted really little with Liaren in the city. I can't remember. They were like in the inn, and I think Lorraine came down and talked to Moraine, and they didn't like each other, and then they sort of left. But yeah, her being there with the dragon and stuff, and then like questioning him oh, not the false dragon, questioning Logan, like why does he think he's the dragon? Some people saw that as her thinking that he was. It's very clear that she never ever saw him as the dragon, but I think she was curious as to why did he think he was the dragon. Obviously he did, but that was just the madness talking to him. So yeah, I did quite like that. I've also given my speculations, so I think that is pretty much a good point to end the episode there. I may talk about some of the things I don't like. Pretty much one of the things that really stuck out to me and annoys the hell out of me is obviously I've said in the last episode, but the way they depicted the one power, like it. That also takes me to the end of episode 4. Nynaeve does something and she basically heals everybody who was injured in like this cave they're keeping Logan, and Logan can see that. He goes, Moiraine goes like, your power is nothing. It's like a little trinkle compared to the blazing sun that will be the actual Dragon Reborn, and Nynaeve heals everybody in like a sort of, she goes no, and she lights up. Logan shouldn't be able to see that. Men can't see the women channel, and women cannot see the men channel either. So he should have just seen everyone get healed, but I don't know if they were making out so he could see the light around her, which is how women see other women who can channel. When women hold the one power, sorry, they glow, and that's how women can tell how strong another woman is. And she lights up the whole room. He should not be able to see that. He should have just seen her scream no, and then everyone heal, which would be impressive in of itself. But he goes, oh, a blazing sun. Like he dawns on him that like, oh, maybe she's the dragon, and I was a false dragon indeed. And yeah, and then they gentle him because they're all healed again. That is one thing. The other thing is how they depicted the swords. They have just straight out katanas. That's not how they depict in the book. The same blade would have been okay, but they have sort of a like a Y-shaped cross guard on them. So a dog. So they're sort of like a hybrid of a traditional Western arming sword / long sword and a katana. So I don't like them changing it to they're just katanas, because that's sort of, it's not how they're depicted. So yeah, I don't like that. To be honest, there's not much I can really complain about. Everything's pretty good. It's different but good, and I'm happy that it is actually different, but similar enough that it does actually feel like an adaptation to me. And with that, I am going to leave you, and I hope you enjoyed the video and you like and subscribe and all that. But if not, hey, and yeah, we'll see you all again next time. Have a great day.